Hello, Gateway Life Groups, or someone else who's listening to this and wanting to go a little bit deeper with Revelation. So in the first video, I've looked at a structure for the whole of Revelation 1 to 11 that involves the 7 letters, 7 seals, and 7 trumpets, and the 4 visions around them. And hopefully I've reminded you of the story. It's no substitute for you going back and reading Revelation 1 to 11. Be so much benefit from that. But I want to give you now just 3 questions and activities to help think a little bit more about these things and about application. So the first thing that you could do as a life group, as an individual now, is to take, if you don't have much time, Revelation 1 and reread it, maybe reading a couple of verses each just to remind yourself of this amazing start to this fascinating book. Or if you have a little bit more time, you may want to read through the letters to the churches, or all 3. And so letters to the churches are found in chapters 2 to 3. So the second thing I want to encourage you to do, so you might want to pause now and do that. The second thing I want to encourage you to do is to help us think a little bit more about the 7 seals. So the 7 seals are open one at a time, showing us the things that must take place. And one of the things that must take place is God allows us to act in the way that we want. He doesn't come and enforce his will on us, although Jesus will return at the end of the book of Revelation. Right now he allows things to happen, allows humanity to hurt one another. He allows us to get what we want. And most of us are not going to be responsible for causing wars, literally. There are things that we can think about in terms of how our government is involved and finances and environmental issues related to that. But for many of us, a helpful place to go and think about what happens when God allows us to live as we want is Romans chapter 1, verse 18 to 31. That's Romans 1, 18 to 31. And there Paul explains in his own words, in quite everyday language, what happens when God's passive justice, passive judgment happens on us and allows us to go after the things that we desire. What does that look like? Is there any challenge for you personally in that? So you could go and read that, and you may want to do that now. And the final section I want to help you look at is the trumpets. So the trumpets, I think one of the central Old Testament passages, because Revelation is constantly referring to the Old Testament, is Numbers 10. So Numbers 10 verses 1 to 10, there is a section describing the trumpets in the life of Israel as they travel through the wilderness. And I want to encourage you to go back and read Numbers 10, 1 to 10 and ask some questions like, what are the trumpets used for here? I've seen at least 4 things that the trumpets are used for in that passage. So what are they used for, and how does that help us understand Revelation and help us understand how we can apply what's happening in Numbers and Revelation? So have a little look at that, see if it sheds some light. I think it'll be really helpful. And why don't you pause now, and in a moment I will bring you back with some possible answers, particularly for that final section. So why don't you pause now? So hopefully you've done one or several of those activities to help you go deeper into Revelation. You may have reread some of the start, and as I said, I'd encourage all of us to be going back into Revelation. Hopefully you had a chance to look at Romans 1, 18 to 31 to think about some challenge and application for what does it mean if God lets me go my own way, if I don't keep going after Jesus and walking with him. What does that look like? But I want to mention a few things about Numbers 10. What are the trumpets used for here? Well, I noticed 4 things. There is when the cloud and fire in the desert moved, that meant God's presence was moving them on. And I think now is a time when we as individuals and as a community and as the church and the church universal need to be aware more than ever of God's Spirit leading us. We're living in unprecedented times where we have no idea what's going on. We need to be following the cloud and the fire. And the trumpet call said, guys, the cloud and the fire is moving on. Let's move on, led by the Spirit of God. I think the second thing that I saw was a call to gather. And as different events are taking place in our world right now, It's more important than ever to gather, and I know it can be so frustrating that we can't gather in person. And I know that looking at Zoom or YouTube or whatever, it's not the same. Just to encourage us that just as the people of Israel had a trumpet call to gather, I believe these trumpets in Revelation remind us that the church is called to gather. Let's make every effort we can. Let's use the technology. Even if we can't bear looking at a screen, if that's what we've done all day, let's go for audio and let's try and gather together in any ways that we can. Thirdly, the trumpets in Numbers tell them war is coming and to get ready. And of course, that's a similar thing that's happening in Revelation. These 7 trumpets are announcements to get ready. And we see a spiritual war taking place, and we as Christians and as the church need to be aware of the spiritual realities, the spiritual war that is happening. In a Western mindset, we often want to just explain away everything, and yet there is a demonic kingdom. There is a kingdom of Satan that would come against us and against humanity. And we need to be aware of that, and we need to pray, and we need to pray together. We need to get to prayer meetings. We need to take opportunities to pray for us, for our friends and families. And then the final thing that I saw is a call to worship. The trumpet call in Numbers says, let's worship God. And that is such an important call. Right throughout Revelation, we see a call to for the church to take part in a spiritual battle, not against flesh and blood, but a spiritual battle against the power of against Satan, to worship God. Worship is a spiritual weapon. We need to put on the full armour of God and to continue to be praying and worshipping. Those were just some of the things that I saw, and I think they help us then understand Revelation a little bit more. Well, I hope that you have a great week. Really looking forward to starting this new series, and may God bless you and protect you and keep you. See you.